The soft whoosh of a message being sent reached my ears before my mind had time to catch up. I stood alone in the empty IT room on the 27th floor, my phone still in my hand, my heartbeat dropping somewhere near my shoes. Cold blue light from the monitors washed over the walls, making everything feel distant and unreal. The steady hum of the air conditioning filled the silence. My thumb lingered on the screen, as if it had moved on its own. I looked down and read the message again. You looked incredible in that dress today. I spent the entire meeting trying not to stare. If you ever drink whiskey on Friday nights, I want to be the one pouring it for you. For a second, it didn't register. Then my eyes shifted upward, to the name at the top of the screen. And everything inside me dropped. Not Emma, not my best friend. Madison Cole. My boss. Director of Operations at Sterling Ridge Marketing. The woman who ran 3 entire floors without ever raising her voice. The kind of leader who didn't need to shout to be heard, people listened anyway. And the same woman who could end my career with a single, perfectly worded email. The room seemed to tilt slightly, like the ground beneath me had shifted just enough to throw off my balance. My fingers tightened around the phone as a tremor ran through my hand. I stared at the screen, hoping, irrationally, that something would change, that the message would disappear. That time would rewind a few seconds and give me another chance. Instead, the word delivered sat there, sharp and final. Then, almost immediately, it changed. Read 11:18 p.m. A cold wave ran through me. Why was she even awake at this hour? I dropped into the rolling chair beside the server rack, the wheels letting out a faint squeak that sounded far too loud in the silence. My throat tightened, like the air had suddenly thickened. I was 29, competent, reliable, the kind of person people trusted to fix things quietly and correctly. And in one careless movement of my thumb, I had just turned my entire career into something fragile and burning. I forced myself to inhale through my nose, slow and controlled, and held it there. 4 seconds in, hold, 4 seconds out. My therapist's voice echoed in my head, the routine I'd learned after the panic attacks started, back when my dad had his heart attack. Control something small when everything else is spinning. I focused on the rhythm of my breathing, clinging to it like it was the only stable thing left. But it didn't stop the thought looping in my mind. I didn't just send a message. I sent it to her, my phone buzzed in my hand. I flinched so sharply the chair rolled backward and lightly hit the wall behind me. For a second I just stared at the screen, my chest tight, my breathing uneven. Every possible outcome ran through my head at once, and none of them ended well. A new message. From her. My thumb hovered over the screen, refusing to move. I wasn't ready to read it, but not reading it wouldn't change anything. I forced myself to look. Whiskey neat. I blinked. The words didn't make sense at first, not in this situation, not after what I had sent. Before I could process it, another message appeared. Come to my office, 30th floor, bring 2 glasses. My mind stalled completely. And then a third message came in. Short, precise, unmistakable. Ethan, that might be the best mistake you've ever made. My name's not Miller, not formal, not distant. Just Ethan. And somehow, that made everything feel even more dangerous. I stared at the screen, my name still glowing there like it meant more than it should. Ethan. Not Miller, not a clipped professional request, not can you look into this, just my name, simple, direct, personal. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. My brain scrambled for an exit. Maybe she was joking. Maybe this was some kind of setup, HR waiting around the corner for me to walk into my own termination. Maybe I could fake being sick, go home, and deal with the fallout later from a safe distance. Anything but this. But another voice pushed through the noise. Calm, stubborn, familiar. The same one that had dragged me out of my parents' cramped house and into this city, that had kept me working late nights until I proved I belonged here. You sent it, own it. I swallowed hard and pushed myself up from the chair. My legs felt stiff, like they weren't entirely convinced this was a good idea. But they moved anyway. Because there was no undoing what I'd done. Only facing it, The office was nearly silent at this hour. Most of the lights had already been switched off, leaving long stretches of dim hallway broken only by the occasional glow from emergency signs and idle screens. I made my way to the break room, each step sounding louder than it should. The place was empty, of course it was. I opened the cabinet and took out 2 short glasses, the heavy kind with thick bottoms. They touched with a dull clink in my hands, the sound echoing slightly in the quiet space. At the sink I turned on the cold water and rinsed them quickly, watching it run over the glass as I tried to steady my breathing again. In, hold, out. Focus. It was just a walk upstairs. Just a conversation. That's all. But my pulse didn't believe it. On the way to the elevator, every small noise seemed amplified. The vending machine clicked somewhere behind me. The exit sign buzzed faintly overhead. My sneakers squeaked against the tile with every step, announcing my presence to an empty floor. I reached the elevator and pressed the button for the 30th floor. For a brief second, I considered turning back. Then the doors slid open. And I stepped inside. The elevator doors closed with a soft, final click that felt louder than it should have. I stood there alone, the 2 glasses still in my hand, watching the numbers climb. 28, 29. It was less than a minute, it had to be. But my mind stretched those seconds into something much longer. Every possible outcome lined up, one after another. HR forms slid across a table. Security walking me out of the building before sunrise. My work email suddenly locked. My mother's face when I told her I'd lost another job. My father's quiet nod, the one where he'd say it happens and pretend it didn't hurt. I tightened my grip on the glasses, then forced myself to loosen it before I cracked one. This wasn't helping. I exhaled slowly and shook out my hands, rolling my shoulders back as if I could physically reset myself. Get it together. By the time the elevator slowed, I had at least convinced my body not to betray me. The doors slid open. And I stepped into a completely different world. The 30th floor didn't feel like the rest of the building. Downstairs, everything smelled like coffee, dust, and printer ink. It was functional, familiar. Up here, the air carried a faint scent of polished surfaces and artificial lemon, clean in a way that didn't feel accidental. Controlled, expensive. The carpet softened my steps immediately, swallowing sound instead of echoing it. The lighting was dimmer, warmer, designed to calm rather than energize. At the far end of the hallway, a full wall of glass revealed the Chicago skyline, stretched out in lights and shadows like it belonged to someone who had already claimed it. To her. I slowed as I approached her office. The door stood slightly open, just enough for a narrow line of warm light to spill into the hallway, cutting across the floor like an invitation or a warning. I stopped just outside, adjusting my grip on the glasses, suddenly aware of how loud my breathing sounded in the quiet. For a moment, I considered knocking and pretending none of this had happened. But that option was long gone. I lifted my hand and knocked twice. Short, clear. My heart was pounding so hard I was certain she could hear it through the door. Come in. Her voice carried through the door, smooth, controlled, giving nothing away. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Madison Cole stood by the floor-to-ceiling window with her back to me, the city lights reflecting across the glass and outlining her silhouette. For a moment, she didn't turn, and I was left standing there, caught between the quiet of the room and the noise in my own head. She wasn't wearing the sharp navy blazer from earlier. Instead, she had on a simple black dress, the sleeves pushed up to her elbows. Her hair was loose now, falling naturally instead of pulled tight like it had been during the meeting. Softer, less like the woman who ran 3 floors. More like someone real. On her desk sat a half-empty bottle of whiskey and a neat stack of files. No laptop, no second phone, no distractions. Just her, the city, and the silence. I closed the door behind me, the quiet click sounding final. She turned then. Her eyes moved first to the glasses in my hands, taking them in without comment. And then lifted to my face. Calm, focused, assessing. Like she was reading something written there. I forced myself not to look away. Her gaze held on me for a moment longer than it probably should have. You came quickly, she said at last. My throat felt dry. I thought you were going to fire me. A faint change crossed her face, something almost like amusement. And yet, she said, you're still here. I placed the glasses on the small table near the sofa, careful to make the movement look steady. My fingers brushed the wood as I let go, cold and smooth under my skin. I straightened up, trying to look like someone who belonged in this room, instead of someone waiting for his career to collapse. Sit, Ethan, she said. Then, after a pause, if I intended to fire you, I wouldn't do it at midnight in heels. That landed differently than I expected. I sat down, back straight, hands on my knees. The space suddenly felt too expensive for me to exist in. Glass, leather, silence, everything too clean, too controlled. She crossed the room without rushing, took the bottle from her desk, and poured whiskey into both glasses. The sound of it hitting glass was sharper than it should have been in the quiet. She handed one to me. First, she said, you're not fired. I held the glass tighter than necessary, as if it could anchor me. I sent you a message that wasn't meant for you, I said quickly. It was a mistake. She tilted her head slightly. Was it? The question wasn't sharp, that made it worse. I opened my mouth to repeat the lie, to make it simple, clean, harmless. But nothing came out. Because I remembered how she looked in that meeting, how she held the room without raising her voice, how she noticed everything even when no one thought she was watching. No, I said finally, it wasn't a mistake. Her eyebrows lifted just slightly. Good, she said. I dislike people who lie more than people who make errors. She took a slow sip, watching me over the rim of her glass. And the room shifted again. Silence settled between us, but it wasn't empty. It felt weighted, like something had already been said without words. She watched me over the edge of her glass, calm and unhurried, as if she had all the time in the world. You looked at me in that meeting, she said quietly, when Mark interrupted me for the third time. I shifted slightly. I noticed your expression, she continued. You didn't speak, you didn't intervene, but your jaw tightened. A pause. You think I didn't see that? Heat crept up my neck. I was just annoyed he was disrespectful. And your response, she said, setting the glass down with measured precision, was to send your boss a message about how she looked in a dress and your desire to pour her whiskey. Her tone stayed light, that made it worse, not better. My grip on the glass tightened. I know it was inappropriate, I said. If I crossed a line, I'll accept whatever consequences there are. I won't involve HR, I understand how it looks. She studied me for a long moment without speaking. Outside the window, the city continued moving like nothing inside this room mattered. Then she leaned back slightly. Relax, she said, I'm not reporting you. A faint, almost tired smile touched her lips. If I did that every time someone in this building thought something they shouldn't, HR would need a resignation form of their own. I exhaled slowly, but the tension didn't fully leave my body. Then why am I here? I asked. She stood up. Not quickly, not dramatically. Just deliberately. And the entire tone of the room changed with her movement. Because, she said, you did something no one else here would dare to do. I frowned slightly. You made a mistake that revealed something true. She stepped closer now, stopping just outside the distance that would make things feel different, but close enough that it already did. You think I don't know when people in this building see me as a title instead of a person? My chest tightened, but I didn't answer. She continued anyway. You didn't look at me like a function, you looked at me like I was real. A beat of silence. Then softer. And I noticed. Silence between us stretched, heavier now, not empty, but charged with something neither of us was namming directly. She moved slowly, closing the remaining distance just enough that I could feel her presence more than see it. Not invading, not retreating, balanced on a line that suddenly felt very thin. You're not in trouble, she said again, quieter this time. I nodded once, but my body still hadn't caught up to that fact. Madison glanced toward the bottle of whiskey, then back to me. You didn't just send a reckless message, she said. You reacted to something you noticed in that room today, something real. I frowned slightly. Mark. A faint, almost dismissive exhale left her. People like Mark are everywhere, she said. That's not what I mean. She studied me for a moment, like she was deciding how much to say out loud. Then she continued. There's a problem in my department, not performance, not visible metrics. A pause, influence, access, someone is moving information out of this building. My focus shifted immediately. The tension in her voice changed everything in the room. This isn't just about a message anymore, she said. It's about judgment and awareness. I set the glass down slowly. You think someone inside is leaking data? I know it's happening, she corrected. I just don't know who yet. Another pause. Then she looked directly at me. And I also know this, she said. The only people in this company who see things others miss are usually either ignored or underused. My mind caught on that sentence. You want me involved, I said carefully. I want you to look, she replied. Not officially, not loudly, just accurately. I hesitated. That's not my role. No, she agreed, it is. That answer should have ended it. But it didn't. Because she didn't look away. And neither did I. You're asking me to investigate your own team, I said quietly. I'm asking you, she corrected, to help me make sure the wrong people don't keep control of this place. The weight of it settled between us. Then she added almost casually, but not really. And I think you already know how to see what others miss. A beat. My voice came out lower than before. And the message, I asked. A small pause. That was the first time her expression changed, just slightly. Not softer. More aware. That, she said, was a mistake. But she didn't sound like she fully regretted it. And that made everything more complicated. The room stayed still for a moment after she spoke, as if even the air was waiting to see what I would say next. I looked at her carefully now, not just as my boss, but as the situation was quietly shifting into something more complicated than either of us had named. You want me to go through company systems, I said slowly. Access logs, activity trails, maybe even internal behavior patterns. She didn't deny it. I want you to find what doesn't belong, she said, and what people are trying to hide in plain sight. I exhaled through my nose, thinking it through instead of reacting. If I do this, I said, it has to stay strictly within legal boundaries. No personal accounts, no private devices, no assumptions without evidence. Her gaze didn't move. You're setting rules, she said. Yes, I answered, because if I don't, this turns into something messy fast, and I'm not interested in being part of that. A brief pause passed between us. Then she nodded once. Agreed. That single word carried more weight than expected. I added, and everything goes through documented channels. Email, audit trails, anything that can be reviewed later. If this escalates, I don't want ambiguity about what was done or why. Fair, she said. Another silence settled. This one less tense, but more defined. I hesitated, then added one more condition. And the message I sent tonight, what I said, it stays separate, completely. Her expression shifted just slightly at that, not offended, not amused. Something more contained. Of course, she said after a moment, this is work. But the way she said it didn't fully close the door. She stepped back first this time, breaking the closeness deliberately. Then we start tomorrow, she said, early. I nodded. Tomorrow, I repeated. She moved toward her desk, already shifting back into control, into structure, into operations. But something in the room had already changed shape. And neither of us was pretending it hadn't. The office felt different after that, like something had been defined that couldn't be easily undone. Madison moved with purpose now, no longer lingering near the window. She pulled her chair back to the desk and gestured for me to take the seat in front of her monitor. Here, she said, start. I sat down, placing the glasses aside. The system dashboard lit up in front of me, rows of data unfolding across multiple screens. Her access level was high, higher than I expected. It felt less like working in a corporate system and more like holding a key to the entire structure of the building. I'm pulling audit logs for the last 90 days, I said. Anything unusual, especially outside normal hours. My fingers moved automatically, muscle memory taking over while my mind tried to process the fact that my boss was standing just behind me, watching in silence. Within minutes, patterns began to form. Most activity was normal, predictable, office hours, routine access. Then I slowed. Here, I said. A cluster of logins appeared on the screen. Late-night access between midnight and 2 a.m., repeated more than once. Always the same system, always the same shared directory. Madison stepped closer behind me. I felt her presence before I heard her. Whose account? She asked. I clicked into the user profile. And my stomach tightened. Her name's Madison Cole. But she immediately shook her head. I wasn't here those nights. I know, I said quietly, someone used your credentials. Her posture changed instantly, focus sharpened. Can you trace it? Not directly, I admitted, but I can build a pattern and I can set a trap. That caught her attention. A trap. A controlled folder, I explained. Something that looks important. If someone's accessing your account, they'll go for it again. We track the device, not just the login. She studied the screen for a moment. Then nodded once. Do it. There was no hesitation in her voice now. Just decision. And somewhere in that moment, it stopped being just an accident, a message, or a mistake. It became something else entirely. The system accepted the change without resistance. A new folder appeared on the dashboard, ordinary on the surface, carefully named to avoid attention. Nothing about it looked special. That was the point. I leaned back slightly, watching the logs initialize. If someone's inside her account, I said, this will look like routine activity, something they'd normally check without thinking. Madison stood just behind me, arms loosely crossed. I could feel her attention fixed on the screen, not on me. How fast will we know? She asked. Depends how confident they are, I replied. If they've been doing this for a while, they'll check it quickly. If they're careful, they'll still check it, eventually. She didn't respond right away. That pause said more than words. The room felt quieter than before, like even the building had shifted into waiting mode. I saved the configuration and stepped back from the keyboard. Now we wait, I said. Madison walked slowly toward the window again, but not fully this time, stopping halfway, as if she couldn't decide whether to return to being the director or stay in this moment where everything was uncertain. You're sure this will work? She asked. No, I said honestly, but it's the cleanest way to catch behavior instead of guessing intent. A faint breath left her. That's usually how you work, she asked. Only when I can't afford to be wrong. She glanced back at me then, quickly but enough for me to notice. The silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't tense. It was focused. Her phone vibrated softly on the desk. She didn't pick it up immediately. Instead, she said, if this works, it changes a lot of things. I understood what she meant without needing it spelled out. Not just for the company. For everything around it. Then we make sure it works the right way, I said. She nodded once. And for the first time since I walked into this room, neither of us looked away from the problem in front of us. Time stopped feeling like time after that. The office settled into a strange kind of stillness, the kind that exists only when something important is expected to happen, but hasn't yet. The logs kept updating in quiet intervals on the screen in front of me. Lines of data appearing, stacking, disappearing into patterns only I could see clearly. Madison didn't sit, she didn't leave. She moved between the desk and the window but never fully committed to either place. It was as if she had stepped out of her usual role and hadn't decided how far she was willing to go back. Then it happened. A small alert flickered on the screen. I leaned forward instantly. Got something, I said. Madison was beside me in seconds. The system flagged a login attempt, same credentials as before, her name, same access point. But this time it didn't stop at observation. It moved. Accessing the folder, I murmured. The bait directory opened. A second later, a copy request initiated. My pulse jumped. He's in it, I said. Madison's expression tightened, but her voice stayed controlled. From where? I traced the connection quickly, watching the network map unfold. Then I stopped. Because the origin wasn't random. It was local. Very local. I zoomed in again, narrowing the node. The location resolved into a cluster of workstations on the same floor. And then further. One cluster. 5 desks. All tied to her department. My eyes locked on one identifier as it flashed. WS30GT. Grant Turner. I didn't need to say the name out loud immediately. The system already had. But I did anyway. Grant Turner's workstation, I said. A silence dropped instantly. Madison didn't move. Not at first. Then her jaw tightened slightly, the only sign that something inside her had shifted. He's been doing this from inside my team, she said quietly. It looks like it, I replied. The transfer attempt continued on screen, slow, deliberate, confident. Whoever it was didn't think they were being watched. Or they didn't think they could be stopped. Madison stepped closer to the monitor. Not angry yet. Focused. Coldly precise. How long, she asked. I checked timestamps. Not days, I said, weeks, maybe longer. A pause. Then she exhaled slowly through her nose. So it wasn't just a breach, she said, it was inside. Yes, I said, and whoever it is, they've been comfortable here. That word changed the atmosphere. Comfortable. Not hiding. Operating. Madison straightened slightly. Keep tracking it, she said, I want every trace. I nodded. Already doing it. The alert blinked again. Copy still in progress. And for the first time since the message I sent, the problem in front of us had stopped being personal. It was something larger now. And already moving. The alert stayed active on the screen, pulsing in steady intervals like a heartbeat that didn't belong to either of us. Copy in progress. Madison stood just behind me, close enough that I could feel the shift in her focus, no longer reactive but fully engaged, calculating, contained. Can you see what they're taking? She asked. I opened the transfer log and filtered the output stream. Not everything, I said, but it's targeted, strategy files, pricing structures, internal forecasts. Her expression hardened slightly. So not random curiosity, she said, someone who knows exactly what matters. Yes. That made the silence sharper. The system updated again. A second transfer request initiated immediately after the first, faster this time, less cautious. They're escalating, I said. Madison stepped closer to the monitor. Let them, she said quietly. I glanced at her. That's risky, I replied. If we push too hard, they might realize. They already think they're in control, she cut in. We don't stop them yet, we observe. There was no hesitation in her voice, only intent. I adjusted the tracking parameters, narrowing the visibility even further. Every action now left a trace, every click logged in real time. Then something changed. A new signal appeared. Not a file access. A login shift. I frowned. They're switching sessions, I said. Madison's gaze sharpened. What does that mean? It means they're trying to avoid detection patterns, I explained. Either moving between terminals or masking activity through another device. I ran a deeper trace. The system hesitated for a fraction of a second, then resolved the connection path. My stomach tightened. It's still local, I said. Same floor. Yes. Madison went still. Then they're not just inside the system, she said. They're physically here. Neither of us spoke for a moment after that. The idea changed the room again, shrinking it, tightening it around us. I leaned forward slightly. I can narrow it further, I said, but if I do, whoever it is will start feeling pressure. Good, she replied. A pause. Then she added, quieter. I want them to feel it. The transfer status flickered again. Still active. Still copying. And somewhere inside the building, someone believed they were getting away with it. Not yet. The system continued to run in the background, quiet but relentless, like something breathing behind the glass of the screen. Data still moved. Still copied. Still leaving traces. I leaned closer to the monitor, refining the filters again, stripping away everything unnecessary until only the essential signals remained. Madison stood behind me without speaking. I could feel her presence steady now, no longer shifting between roles, no longer divided between executive and observer, fully focused. "Any change?" she asked. "Small one," I said. I pointed at the log stream. The transfer speed just increased. Whoever it is, they're trying to finish quickly now. Her voice stayed calm, because they think they're safe. Or because they think they're running out of time, I corrected. That earned a brief silence. I adjusted the tracking window again, isolating authentication behavior instead of just file movement. The system responded with more detail than before: device patterns, session overlaps, micro-auth checks. Then I saw it. A second authentication signature. Not identical, but close enough to be deliberate. My fingers paused on the keyboard. "That's new," I said quietly. Madison stepped closer. "What is it?" I zoomed in. "There's a secondary access layer piggybacking on the main session," I explained. "Like a shadow login, it's not supposed to exist under normal usage." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "So someone is hiding behind the original access?" "Yes." The implications settled between us without needing to be spoken. This wasn't just one careless breach. It was structured, intentional, layered. Madison exhaled slowly. "How deep can you go?" she asked. I hesitated only briefly. "Deep enough to trace the origin point of the device," I said. "But once I do that, we can't pretend this is just monitoring anymore. It becomes a full escalation." She didn't answer immediately. Her attention stayed on the screen, watching the unauthorized transfer continue like nothing had changed. Then she said, "Do it." I turned slightly toward her. "You understand what that means?" "Yes," she said, "it means we stop guessing." A pause. "And start knowing." I nodded once. Then began the final trace. The system responded slower now, as if it understood the importance of what I was asking it to reveal. I tightened the trace parameters and pushed deeper into the network path, following the chain of access layer by layer instead of just watching the surface activity. On the screen, the data shifted, flattened, then rebuilt itself into a clearer structure. Madison didn't move behind me. I could feel her attention locked on the monitor, sharper than before. "Talk to me," she said quietly. I kept my focus on the routing map. "The primary session is still Grant Turner's workstation," I said, "but that's not the full story." A new node appeared. Then another. I frowned slightly. "There's a relay," I added. "Meaning?" "Meaning the connection isn't going straight from his machine to the external request," I said. "It's being routed through another internal point first." Madison's voice tightened just a fraction. "Another employee." "Possibly," I said, "or a compromised system acting as a bridge." I expanded the relay path. The map extended across the floor layout of the building, dots representing workstations, access points, shared terminals. Then the chain locked onto a specific cluster. My expression changed. "Here," I said. Madison stepped in closer. "What is it?" I zoomed in further. A second workstation ID appeared in the chain, acting as an intermediary between Grant's system and the data transfer. WS30KL. I studied it for a second longer than I should have. "It's not just one machine," I said slowly. "There's at least 2 points involved, one initiates, the other masks." Madison didn't react immediately. Then she said, "Names." I pulled the user list tied to the second workstation. The system loaded. One line appeared. My stomach tightened slightly. I didn't speak right away. Madison noticed. "What is it?" she asked again. I looked at her once, then back at the screen. "Kelly Vance," I said, "Senior Analytics Lead." The silence that followed was heavier than the data itself. Madison's expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes sharpened instantly. "So it's coordinated," she said. "Yes," I replied, "at least 2 people, maybe more." The transfer window on the screen ticked forward again. Still active. Still moving data out of the system. But now it looked different. Not like a mistake. Like a process. Madison straightened slightly. "Then we stop treating it like a leak," she said. "We treat it like an operation." I nodded slowly. "And we're in the middle of it," I said. She didn't hesitate this time. "Good," she replied. "Then we finish it." System didn't slow down after that. If anything, it became more precise, like the moment we stopped guessing had pushed whoever was on the other side into focus. Data still moved through the network, but now I could see the structure behind it clearly. 2 access points, 1 active controller, 1 masking layer. And something worse. Confidence. "They're not stopping," I said quietly. Madison stood behind me close enough that I could feel her presence steady and unmoving. No hesitation left in her now, only direction. "Let them finish what they think they're doing," she said. I glanced at her. "If they complete the transfer, we lose containment." "No," she replied. "If they complete it, they expose themselves fully." That landed differently. I turned back to the screen and tightened the trace one final time. The system responded instantly now, almost as if it had been waiting for permission to reveal the last layer. A final routing path appeared. It wasn't just Grant. It wasn't just Kelly. There was a 3rd connection node buried deeper in administrative access. Higher privileges. Not departmental. Executive level. I froze slightly. Madison noticed immediately. "What is it?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I refined the trace again, verifying the path twice. Then I said it. "There's another access layer," I said, "above them." The room went quiet. Madison stepped closer to the monitor. "Show me," she said. I rotated the view. The chain extended upward through the system hierarchy until it stopped at a privileged credential group tied to infrastructure-level control. Her eyes narrowed as she read it. But she didn't speak immediately. That silence told me she already understood what it implied. "This isn't just internal theft," I said carefully. "Someone with high-level access is enabling it." Madison exhaled slowly through her nose. Then she said very quietly, "Board access." I didn't confirm it immediately. I didn't need to. The system confirmed it for both of us. Another transfer spike hit the logs. "Maximum throughput. Final extraction attempt." "They're finishing it now," I said. Madison turned slightly toward the door. "Then we stop watching," she said. I shut the laptop screen down to a narrower control window, locking the trace in place. "You're sure?" I asked. "Yes," she said. A pause. Then she added, "If this is as deep as it looks, they've already crossed every line that matters." She walked toward the exit. And for the first time since the night began, the problem was no longer inside the screen. It was outside the room.